As we have folks still coming in and joining the webinar, I do want to share a couple of points as for the value of today's topic. So as you know, CMM Magazine publishes two benchmarking surveys every year, two industry surveys. One is for the in-house professional and the other is for the building service contractors. And interesting, for the in-house facility maintenance professionals, they all indicated on that survey, 44% said it was the most troubling, challenging area of their facility to clean and maintain and avoid complaints. What did building service contractors have to say? 42% said the same thing, the most challenging and the area of the buildings that they service that brought the most complaints. So I think we can see why today's topic, flushed with pride, creating restrooms that improve facility image, is so important. So it looks like we have quite a few of you in on our webinar. We'll have a few more joining us. And we have our chat feature open. If you have any questions, feel free to chat with each other. And I see everyone saying hello and welcome and good afternoon and good morning and all that. So I think we are live and ready to go. So Martha, let's go ahead and advance and get started. Since I'm doing the one talking, you probably realize I'm your moderator. My name is Jeff Cross. I am the ISSA Media Director. My email's on screen and you can reach me anytime. Our webinar support, those behind the scenes running things, Martha Schmidt is our events producer, virtual events producer, and Kathleen Misovic is our CMM editor. So they'll be helping with the webinar today as we go through our presentation. Just speaking of who we are, CMM Magazine, Cleaning and Maintenance Management Magazine, you can see on the screen, we have print, digital, we do webinars, obviously, and we do videos as well. But everything you need as far as a professional to do your work, to get information, to keep up to date, we provide that from CMM. And of course, we also want to think about how this webinar is brought to you. It's brought to you by not only CMM, but also our sponsors, and we'll have a few sponsor messages as well. As we get started, just a couple of reminders. You don't have to worry about your sound. You're automatically muted, except for our panelists. So, but all the attendees are muted, but feel free again to use the chat feature to interact with each other or with the panelists. The Q&A feature you'll see on the platform here, that's if you have a question for our panelists. We're going to do a Q&A at the very end. So if you have a question, anytime during the webinar, be sure to put it in there. You can also put it in the chat feature. Kathleen is going to be keeping an eye on that and making sure we see those important questions. Some may wonder, how will I get this recording? That will be emailed to you. So if you're here live or if you've registered for this event, you will get an email in a few days. I'm not going to promise exactly when, but shortly after the webinar, you'll get a copy of this and you can use and watch it. It'll also be on our website at cmmonline.com. So if you'd like to see it there, it'll be there in a few days as well. So here's our first sponsor message. Again, we thank our sponsors, Tomy, Steramis, and also Kaivac. Let's go ahead and enjoy this first message. Okay, as a reminder, be sure to put your questions in the Q&A portal. We're going to have a couple of chat questions for you as well. So I can see from all the chatting going on right now that everyone knows how to use that. So we look forward to getting your thoughts there as we go through our presentation. Our speakers today, as you can see on screen, and also there are nice pictures here. We have an expert panel. I tell you what, it's amazing what we've got assembled for this next hour for you attendees today. We have Gene Woodward. He's retired now, but he was a director of building services with the University of Washington in Seattle. So we have Gene with us. We also have Steve Larson, executive vice president with a building service contracting company, CCS Facility Services of Colorado. Jennifer Friz is our regional director of operations, K-12, another contractor, SSC Services for Education. And Marcelo Essabba, our Senior Director of Housekeeping Operations at Hard Rock Stadium. Maybe some of you have been to a Dolphins game. Marcelo was no doubt there for that. So he takes care of those operations. So those are our experts. Before we move on, I want to mention this. This is interesting. I asked each of these organizations how many restrooms they service, whether it's a facility or a contracted, and you're going to be surprised. Some 75,000 restrooms are represented by these 4 people. Now, I don't think each one of them has been in all their restrooms, but you might hear from 1 or 2 that they have been. So we'll see how that plays out today. But 75,000 restrooms under the care of these organizations, an amazing number. So let's do our first chat question. So we want to hear from you folks, you attendees, because what you put in here is something that our panelists can comment on as well. I think we're going to have some of the same information. That's okay. What is the one issue most important to you that you want to address today? So think about that. You can put it in right now. You could add it later, but what issue do you have with restroom care? What complaints do you get? What are some of the things that you see with your facilities that you need help with? Okay, so here's how we're going to run our webinar today. Basically, we're going to have panel discussions. We have a couple of questions we'll put on screen, and our panel can talk about these issues. So let's get started and get into this. So the first discussion is, what is your facility's biggest restroom challenge, and how have you tackled this challenge? And I'm going to say ladies first. Jennifer, why don't we go to you, and you can comment for a minute or 2 on this, and then we'll move on to the others.
All right, good afternoon. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had in K-12, especially over the last 12, 18 months, is just destruction of paper towels, the dispensers, where kids from, different types of social media are having these challenges. And, one of the ways we really worked to tackle this was working with the principals, the people at the schools, letting them know how much damage was done. And by doing that, that really helped have the buy-in from the staff at the school to show the damage, not just another dispenser off the wall, but kind of what is the value and what's going into having to repair it.
Good information, and definitely challenges there. Besides what you just shared, Jennifer, we have all kinds of chat questions or comments coming in. Restroom care, obviously not an easy task, so thank you for that. Jean, how about you? It's been a while since you've had to clean a restroom, but being retired, but tell us what you think.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. And good morning, everyone. I'm on the West Coast here in Seattle. During my 37 years at the University of Washington, I took pride in being out in the field, and I'm going to brag a little bit about probably being the only one at the University of Washington who has been in every restroom on campus. By far, our biggest challenge was workload, staffing, being able to allocate staff to spend enough time in the restrooms to keep them well stocked, to keep them clean, and to make sure all the touch points were being disinfected. Our custodians had such a large workload so that we prioritized restrooms and let them know what they could skip in other parts of the campus. We reduced the number of times we went into offices just to once a week to sweep the floors or vacuum the carpets. They were all self-service. That freed up a lot of time for the custodians to spend more time doing the good job that they wanted to do in the restrooms, but sometimes it was just a time constraint because of the workload.
All right. Every restroom, Gene. That's quite a lot of foot traffic there getting around. All right. Marcelo, let's go to you next. You must have challenges with your facility. I mean, those activities nonstop, I bet. Bet you get unmuted.
Yeah,
there you go.
We push real hard on restroom and try to make sure that staffing is aware that that's one of our vital points here once filling the facility. And I just explained that to them last week about, let's make believe that it's a family member and yourself attending a venue and that you would have to experience what you see. So if put more attention into that, you wouldn't want to have put your child or a friend or a parent in a bad scenario in a bathroom that's really unkosher at all, you know. So we have plenty of challenges with that. We have challenges with a quick turnaround. I'll give you guys some stats that maybe it'll help. It's on average, I think that it's out there that's between 2 to 2.5 uses while you attend a 6-hour event. So let's just say we have 50,000 people, so the restrooms might get 100,000 people hit the restrooms. And that be it for depending on your facility and how many people come as a patron to a restaurant or any other organization building that you may have. So those are kind of some good numbers to go by. That's pretty accurate. And we've done some research on our side on that as well. Challenges with larger restrooms because of the capacity here. It's making sure that we have the products, as Jean mentioned, to accommodate the guests and the staff. So we use bulk items for high frequency visits. I've tested out on a few restrooms, mostly on the ladies' side, that we have jumbo juniors on paper tissue dispensers, and I've done 2.5 games without having to change. It's a three carousel holder. So at least we know that what time length we have and capacities and some metrics to try to assist on us on replenishing products in the restrooms and other locations throughout the building.
Well, that's good information, Marcelo, because next time I'm at an event with my family and they have to go to the bathroom more than twice, I'll say no. Marcelo said. No, that's great stuff. Steve, let's move to you. This is actually a picture your company sent me to use, so I love this image. Go ahead and share what you have to say.
Great. Hey, thank you, Jeff, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Yeah, you know, the thing with the restrooms in a building, it's a very personal, it's the most personal place that a person might enter in a building, and we recognize that. So there's a real sensitivity to cleanliness and odor, and exactly the hardest place sometimes to maintain those things. So the biggest challenge that we have is maintaining a good steady state of cleanliness and stocking across the day and across the week. Let's face it, there's variability associated with times of day, sometimes days of week. It can be, Marcelo would tell you, event driven. Heck, we even throw in weather as we operate across the central and United States, from all the way from Canada to Mexico border. It's hard. And the ways that we work on maintaining a good steady performance were covered by some of my associates, and they include having a good proactive schedule that anticipates what those needs are going to be, and then reacting as need be. We do full cleans during the day, and we have porters typically on schedule that will go in at various times to take care of things. Like Marcelo, we oftentimes look at delivery solutions to make sure that our capacities are higher. Excuse me, sorry. The plate sensor there. Can't plan for that, right, Jeff? Nope. And we make sure that we're stocking fully, and we have the right dispensing system. So those are just a couple of things that we do to add to what the team has shared.
Thank you, Steve. And yeah, I've been on webinars where lights do go out and those motion sensitivities happen. Let's move on, Martha, to our next topic. Here we are. And thank you, Marcelo, for this image. How do you ensure your restrooms don't run out of toilet paper, paper towels, and other supplies? And have you tried IoT, Internet of Things technology to help keep your restroom stocked? And of course, Marcelo already mentioned that a little bit, but I'm going to just go with who's on my screen here next. Jean, let's start with you. What did you folks do?
We made sure that we had the right number of dispensers within those restrooms based on traffic, based on the hours of operation for that particular building. Some buildings are open from 7 a.m. to around the clock, basically. So we would make sure that there was an ample number of dispensers for toilet paper, paper towels, and as Marcelo alluded to, ensuring that they had large capacity. And then the restrooms that were really the busiest, and our custodial team understood this, there were certain restrooms on the ground floor, the study areas and libraries, food service areas, where the custodian knew to do their thorough once a day cleaning in the morning And then in the afternoon, we're a daytime operation. We're primarily cleaning our restrooms during the day. And so they would do a double check, and not only just check for any potential messes that may have occurred in the restroom, paper towels on the floor, et cetera, but they'd also check the dispensers to make sure that they were stocked. And we were just beginning to look at LOT technology. We had looked and explored and met with a couple of different vendors. And then COVID came along and we kind of put that on the back burner. So I think that technology can really assist in terms of the counters, you being able to count how many people have actually entered a space, and then you can be more precise in when you go in to replenish supplies. Sometimes it was hit and miss for our staff. They would go in, check the second time, take the time to go see if a restroom needed replenishing, and it didn't. So that was, 10, 15 minutes valuable time spent when they didn't really need to go there. So I see some value in that technology.
Sure. Yeah, I think we all do. Marcelo, I know you already commented a bit on this. Anything to add to what you said previously?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the IoT as well. We've been going back and forth for 10 years. It's it's got to be quantifiable. There's other things associated with it, with hardwire and software, but basically, I think it's a great component for a lot of metrics for the future. And you got to see if it's a fit for your facility. They come a long way. I know places that do have it, and it comes in very handy. You get a real-time exposure of when something's run out. Also, for everyone on the webinar, it's always best to check your facility and your metrics to see, like Gene said, he had higher traffic in some restrooms. A lot of architects will build 2 sinks, and then they'll give you 1 paper towel dispenser, if you ever noticed that, or 5 sinks and 2 paper towel dispensers. So you got to try to match things that make sense on your behalf for your facility. I use a lot of our larger capacity restrooms. You'll see 3 on this wall, but there's an entrance and an exit. So I use my entrance and also put 3 dispensers there. So if it goes short, the inventory is in the restroom already for that person working that restroom or supervising that level. He'll just grab it from what I call it a dead wall and put it on a live wall. So the transition is in the same space where the inventory is.
I love the strategic thinking here. This is good stuff. Steve, you're next. Anything to add?
Sure. Well, we work for 11 different market verticals, so we get a lot of exposure to what companies are doing, everything from K through 12 schools to entertainment, commercial office buildings, manufacturing, et cetera. And we do have some customers that are using IoT, specifically the Colo system by Georgia Pacific. And it's a really elegant way of staying in tune with what's going on in the restrooms, and enables us to address things that may not be perfectly addressed by our schedules. We've also used and are using some more mundane ways of doing things, like signage that invites folks to call in, things like that. We hate for the customers to let us know when things are amiss, but we're positioned to respond to that well. So those are the things that we're doing to keep up with restroom cleanliness and stocking outside of our normal schedules.
Thank you, Steve. And Jennifer, back to you. Anything to share there?
I think especially in K-12, because of our supplies are usually housed at a warehouse, is creating that par level at our schools and ensuring that, because during the day, our day porters are policing the bathrooms, is ensuring that our evening cleaners are fully stocking the restrooms and making sure we're going through and checking on them. And then as we go through the day and we see our par levels are a little off, not waiting to the last minute to bring more supplies from our warehouse, but keeping them stocked so that we do not run out of products. I think we could all admit or verify that running out of supplies is just not a good idea. So we don't want those complaints, and they're avoidable with this type of strategy. Thank you all for that. Let's move on to our next topic and consider this. So let's talk about productivity.
how do you increase productivity to get more from your workers, especially with high traffic areas, heavy traffic? And I think we're to Marcelo to start us off. And speaking of a lot of traffic, you might win the game here when you think about in a day how many visits to the restrooms you have. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a huge challenge, and again goes back to planning and strategizing. There are times that we have less than 8 hours to be able to flip the stadium and restrooms into a fresh, brand new facility for the new guests. So, like I said again, once you plan and you're at your facility and your side, figuring out what's your turnaround time, and then try to scale and pivot as much as you can till you get to a solution where you know that you have 4 or 5 hours and you can turn around 86 restrooms by planning and applying different applications. So we have a quick turnaround. We use here some hovers and some pressure washers to be able to flush out the restroom. So we get rid of all these odors and bacteria quickly, and then have a team come behind and wipe down, disinfect, and clean and replenish the supplies as needed. So it's really upon being able to see what your facility or your venue or your building you're working in to put a system together that kind of works from you. And it'll take a long time to get this. Sometimes it's better through these webinars and reaching out to some resources that been there or has some challenges. They can assist you in educating you and trying to get the best turnaround.
Absolutely. And Steve, how about you folks?
Well, it starts with work plans, actually, right? So we're going to make sure that we're creating efficient work routes that cut down on travel time. As part of that, we're going to be careful about how we place product strategically throughout the facility, so we don't have people wasting time going to pick up what they need to do the job. No more important than in consumables, right, where you go through an awful lot to replenish the restrooms. Getting back to making sure that we're encouraging our building owners and managers to get the right delivery systems that have the right capacity, a high level of capacity. Tech enablement. Right, Marcelo had the grandest view. I can imagine what it looks like at the stadium, and bringing truck mounts and pressure washers and things. And we also use some technology enablement with typically with compartmentalized restroom cleaning tools, things like that. There's process efficiency as part of training and supervision, that we make sure that every ergonomics are right, and folks are using the right tools and the right methods to get through quickly. So that's the set that we use to make sure we're efficient.
Okay, good. And Jennifer, you're next.
So very similar to Steve, we use duty lists that help with the productivity and making sure that they're following a path. But as he said, as well as making sure that they have the supplies, the resources that they need with them, so they're not spending time, traveling to the other side of the schools to get the supplies that they might need. But also using different tools that have come onto the market in our restroom to help with productivity, and really the ones who've been around for a while who don't want to use it, showing them the real reason why and what the end result is and how much more they get out of it by using those products.
That sounds like education to me, Jennifer. So yeah. Very important. Yeah, you get the best results when people believe in the cause of what they're doing. Thank you for that. And Gene, we'll wrap up this topic with you.
Jeff, I don't know if it's possible to go back to the previous slide.
Well, it's up to Martha. Let's see what she does. There we go.
So one of the things that we really focused on, and I was going to ask Marcelo the questions about this, but is the ergonomics and the ease of movement and the organization for the team members to actually clean the restrooms in the most efficient way. For an example, and Marcelo and I talked about this, we had some on-the-counter soap dispensers, which the custodians literally had to get on their back on the floor to reach up to empty the dispenser, or to remove the empty dispenser and replace another one. Very awkward, very difficult movements, and totally inefficient. So anywhere where restrooms were installed that way, we quickly capped those counters, removed the dispensers, and went with wall-mounted dispensers, soap dispensers. That was much more efficient and easier for the custodians to manage. They also felt better about their physical well-being. So I think ergonomics, how the cart is designed, how your cleaning cart is organized, the right kind of tools, as was Jennifer mentioned. We discovered that custodians in cleaning the toilets were leaning to the side to keep the partition door from closing. And this was the most awkward position. It was we surveyed our custodians, and it was the #1 most uncomfortable task that they performed during the course of the day. And you're cleaning 30 to 40 toilets, and you're holding the partition open. So what we did was install magnets to keep the partition doors open automatically for them. And it still took custodians a couple of weeks to stop holding the doors or leaning their bodies because they had been so accustomed to it. So I'm a firm believer in designing the cart, the workflow, and the ergonomics for cleaning restrooms to improve efficiency. So thanks for going back. I just wanted to use that as an example. I'm not picking on you, Marcelo. We have those as well.
We have a combination of both here.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to our other slide and maybe move on from there. But I tell you what, though, having your employees lay on their back in the bathroom to do their work, probably not a good idea for morale. So changes have to be made when you see that. Okay, let's move on to this topic. A couple of questions there. What restroom area does your custodial staff, spend the most time cleaning and maintaining, and why? And what areas are most often overlooked in terms of cleaning and maintenance? So I think we're down to Steve to start us off.
Sure. Well, yeah, having started as a janitor in this business, I have an up-close experience with that. The areas around the bowls and the urinals are often ones that need the most attention, particularly in the men's rooms, and often those that are most often overlooked. Not only under the bowls, on the walls, the surrounding partitions, things like that, really become an important training issue. Making sure we're using the right products, disinfectants to deodorize, and also for supervision, because those are ones that ergonomically are the most uncomfortable. Squatting down under a bowl or getting the walls every night, but those are ones that are really, really important to us, and we spend a lot of time on. Other areas that are overlooked. Gosh darn it, our cleaners are often the ones. We've gone to a lot of microfiber because our cleaners are often the ones that are dirtying the baseboards with the dirty mop water, which is a nuisance to change. We actually have gone to some double bucket things and some microfiber to keep clean water clean longer. The high dusting is one that frustrates us, that we can always find some extra work on that. And then underneath areas, there's my light sensor again, right on cue. When I'm talking, under things, right? Under sinks, things like that tend to get overlooked as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Jennifer, what about you folks?
I think Steve took most of my response, but
that's going to happen.
I think especially in K-12, one of the areas that, like he was talking about, most often overlooked is underneath the bowls, and then really, especially in the urinals, underneath the bowl, onto the wall. And I think that goes back to where we spend the most of our time, which is, especially in the boys' restrooms, is on the walls. So we use a lot of, machines to get that cleaned off. And then also on our partitions, because of graffiti, and we spend a lot of time having to clean that off. A lot of times, especially in our, high schools, on a daily basis. So that's where we probably spend a lot of our time.
Mm-hmm. Good. And Gene?
Most of the custodians' time and how we train them is to be sure to disinfect the human touch points. So the fixtures on the sinks, anything that a person, a student, a staff, faculty, staff might touch. So a lot of time is spent on that. And our panelists have already described what the things that are neglected. We went to microfiber several years ago, and we use the mop system that actually squirts fresh solution onto the floor, so we don't bother with changing buckets. I think the mop bucket is probably the most archaic tool that we kind of impose on our custodians. They have to wring it out, take water from one place to another. You're also adding to your water bill, because this mop water has to go down the sewer system, and there is a bill for the school districts or the universities to pay for that. And probably the areas that we struggle with in Seattle is the hard water lines in the urinals or in toilets that builds up, and the custodians doing the daily route and cleaning of the restrooms don't often have the time to really do that scrub. And we provide them. I saw a question in the chat regarding, what is the least toxic chemical to clean urinals and toilets. And we use Puma sticks, and we were able to find a brand with handles on them, and they are very effective. It's not even a chemical. Well, it's probably a chemical, but it's not anything harmful in there that we're exposing our staff to. And we also, because our team members had so little, they want to do a good job, but they know they got to move on to something else real quick. We established Project Crew, which went around with machines, and all of our restrooms were on a schedule based on how busy they were. Some restrooms would, this Project Crew would come in and power wash everything, scrub everything down, maybe on a monthly basis. There were some on an every 3-month basis. So that supplemented the daily cleaning, and took care of those walls and underneath the urinals that sometimes get neglected because custodians feel like they have to rush to get to another assignment.
Okay, good. And Marcelo, anything to add?
Yeah, these guys done a great job, but definitely, like Gene's mentioning, we have mud buckets here, and they're very unhygienic. We think everything's going back there. People got to touch that, things from the floor going back in. So we have a whole program just to disinfect and clean those on a regular basis as well. I see a lot of questions on odor and washrooms, challenges that other people have. So basically, the combination of what everybody uses here, the best system is for you to eliminate the odors, to eliminate the item, correct? So anything used, wet dry back, be it another type of equipment, or things to either flush that out, get it out of the system, because mopping, it gets the job done, but not as well as a scrubber, maybe picking that up and eliminating those bacteria or anything that's under the urinals and under the toilet. So the best method would be that, being that it is challenging, like Gene said, with time. So it's got to be either in a planning system, or just basically trying to do as frequent as you can. Someone was asking how frequent they clean a restroom, one of these things. The more frequent, the better you think you're going to get a result. So, I mean, those are some of the challenges, but we have here as well. And that's the trick, is trying to flush all that out to get that odor and the bacteria and items out of that restroom. And then it should eliminate any of the scents that are unwanted.
Get it clean and get rid of the contaminants. Everything is good then. Thank you for that. Let's move on, Martha. I think we have a sponsor message next. So let's move into that. Well, I don't know about the rest of you. I feel motivated to clean a restroom, but let's do this chat question instead. Here we go. And we want to hear from you folks, you attendees. This is an important question. Are you continuing to clean at increased pandemic-driven frequencies, or have you settled back into pre-pandemic habits? So feel free to comment on that, because we know that with the pandemic, things changed. And what we don't want to see happening is relaxing what we've learned that works. So we'll leave that up there for us to look at, and we can comment on as we go through our webinar. So let's move on to our next topic. Our next discussion is talking about worker shortage. Has the worker shortage affected your facility's ability to clean and maintain restrooms? And what do you do about that? What strategies have you used to deal with the shortage? So let's start with you, Jennifer. What about your employees, your people?
So, I mean, we all know that there's, worker shortage, but I think that educating, helping our associates understand that a restroom is really a non-negotiable, that we have to get in there, we have to clean those areas, and making that the focus. I think, like Jean was saying earlier, you're setting an expectation when people come into the facility, and especially in schools, we have to make that, to our staff, to our principals, to our students, that it is a priority to us. And some of the strategies we've just had to use is, instead of, making sure we have all our supplies together so we can get through it. But I think really just keep talking about it over and over so that they understand the importance of how critical maintaining a restroom is, one for infection control, but also just for it being visible to the public. We want it to be clean because it's an area that everybody goes to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we're going to probably run out of time today for our Q&A. So I want to kind of speed things up a bit. Jean, Marcelo, and Steve, anything to add to that? Go ahead and share your thoughts.
Real quick. Oh, go ahead,
Jean.
I was just going to say, everyone's running from the bear on this, right? That is tough. The labor market is tough. So we're jokingly trying to outrun everyone else running from the bear, right, in the commercial business. But we found that the better part of the subject is retention. And we've worked very, very hard on retention, and everything from, making sure that we're paying at competitive rates and, paying for productivity. We're doing supervisory training on how to effectively manage. We actually do emotional intelligence training to make sure that we're hanging on to folks. And I mentioned I started as a restroom cleaner, and I was just as important then as I am now. I just know more, and I have more time in the seat. So, aside from that, recruiting, we're investing more in recruiting than we ever have, and we're very intentional about it. So that's how we're dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. Jean, go ahead.
I agree with everything that's been said. Jennifer and Steve made some excellent points. Training, how you orient your new team members as they come on board is so important. And then refreshing all the messages that you gave them during their orientation in their first few days on campus. That is your opportunity to instill the culture, to really inform them to the expectations of their job. And the worker shortage has really, one of the positive things that came out of this at the University of Washington is that we went to a more cooperative cleaning. We worked with the campus community, now understanding what they need to do to help keep the campus clean. And this was COVID driven, obviously, but our environmental health and safety department gave us guidance on what needed to be disinfected, how often, based on the space type. And we were assigned certain things to do during the course of the day in the public areas, elevator buttons, handrails, touch points in the public spaces. We would clean a break room once per day. But after that, the people using that break room were expected to clean after they used it. Now, whether they did or not, but I think the heightened awareness of how, especially early on in the pandemic, that we weren't certain how the virus was being transmitted. It was thought that it could be off of hard surfaces, soft surfaces. So that still continues to be the guidance that everyone needs to be involved in keeping their space clean. Students, if they go to the computer station, there's disinfectant wipes there, or there's some kind of a kit for them to clean the space before they use it and then after they use it. So I think that's a positive, because now more people are involved in disinfecting and cleaning. So that was a a strategy that I helped kind of influence, but it was really guided by our environmental health and safety department. And it's all in writing. It's all on our website, the university website, and it's made clear for every space type. And that was a strategy that really, really has helped us.
Yeah, that's good. And Marcelo, wrap it up for us.
It's a combination. Everybody's hit a lot of good points on, and as Gina said, we were doing this previously to COVID out of our department. We see when the flu season would come around, and we distribute things throughout the whole office to get people to buy in and assist within themselves too. And that was a big plus. We continue to clean at the maximum capacity that we are allowed to here, and hit in different areas at higher frequencies and traffic areas and more traveled spaces. But like both of them, Jennifer and Steve and everyone had mentioned that, we really got to supply our frontline staff with the right tools and things that they makes them comfortable and be able to accomplish the job that we're looking to get to a final result out of it, be it some alternating some, be it the toilet brush or a spray bottle, mop bucket to flat mops. But it's got to be a real constant conversation between you and your front lines and trying to innovate or give things that make sense to them. Sometimes they have the best input because they're out there every day, and then you just, as us here, we be able to supply them with the right equipment and resources to get the same result or a better result. So it's important to revisit and train and then a follow up. And I had some people here I see on the chat asking for timelines on different specific items. Each of them, I go into a room myself, I vacuum, and then it's a minute and 25 seconds. You take a note, you take the metrics, and you pass that on to some of the staff and on some items that they're looking to get done and how long it takes. But every scenario here between all these professionals on the panel and watching, that you really got to take your facility and then do some of your own metrics on it so that you get realistic times and equipment needed. Sometimes keeping a janitor cart very simple, but it's getting the job done and covering the spaces is the best option instead of putting 95 products on a cart and tell somebody to go loose. But that's about it.
Jeff, can I just highlight something Marcelo just said real briefly? I had mentioned earlier that cleaning the restrooms was one of the tasks that custodians at the University of Washington said was most comfortable. And we discovered also that we used a 12-inch toilet brush. And so for tall people, that was a long bend. And for shorter people, they were too close. So we pushed the industry, and going to ISSA shows, I asked many manufacturers of toilet brushes to come up with a telescopic toilet brush so you can adjust it based on the height. And so that's just one of the things I want to highlight, that Marcelo mentioned the tools to do the job efficiently. So I just wanted to mention that to the panel, to everyone here.
No, that's good. Innovation is good. In fact, I just bought a telescoping fly swatter the other day, so it's definitely a good idea. All right, let's move on to our next topic, and we're going to start with Eugene on this. So let's talk about checklists. Do they work? How do you make them work? And now that second point about pandemic level awareness and cleaning, we did that in a chat. And I think we kind of answered that with our audience. Most are sticking with the pandemic driven frequencies, but let's talk about checklists briefly. Gene?
Not for our team members actually doing the cleaning. We didn't implement checklists there, but for the supervisors and managers doing the inspections, we wanted to have a checklist for them to really look at the right things and see if they were clean to the level that we wanted them to be, and also as a training tool for them to use with their frontline team members. We would walk around together quarterly, all the supervisors and managers, and inspect the restroom together so that we had the same standard. Is this clean? Is this sink clean or is it not? Is this wall clean or not? So that we had a consistency throughout the organization. So for supervisors and managers and their inspections, checklists are a great tool, but we didn't employ those for the frontline workers. We relied on training.
Okay, Marcelo?
Yeah, we've gone through a few checklist options, be it app-driven, and also paper. It's with the amount of people and staff, we've had some challenges trying to deploy all of that at the same time. So we've gone the same route as Gene, trying to keep the managers and the supervisors doing the inspections and coming back. And we also go out as a group and oversee just not our things with restroom, we're also things related to, be it engineering or anything else that affect anyone in the facility, that we can reach out to them and warn them that, you know, the faucet is not working or something is broken. But we've been more successful with the supervisors and managers doing the walk and getting back to seeing where we're short and where we need to enhance some items.
Mm-hmm. Good. And Steve.
Jeff, I'm going to check my light sensor here real quick. This is a free bit of advice for anyone that's overseeing the construction of a new office. Make sure that they put the light sensors on a wall that's not a sidewall, because that's a work ticket we have in for now. To your question, sir.
Yeah, but we'll put that on our next webinar. We'll talk about that next
webinar. Exactly right. Yep. Practical space design. Look, there's process checklists and there's QA checklists. So the process checklist might be for the individual performing the work, right? So that would align with training and it would align with supervision. So in that case, I say they work if you check the checklist, right? So then there's the QA checklist, which, you know, typically we'll handle those electronically. And, you know, that's the work that we're doing and going in and monitoring the work. So we believe in checklists. We see across our footprint a wide variety, some customer driven, and, you know, handled carefully and managed well. We found them very useful.
Good. And Jennifer, anything to add to that?
Nothing to add. It like Steve just said, you know, it's putting the process in place and just making sure that you're following up on it and utilizing it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right, let's move on to our next one. This is kind of an interesting topic as we move to our next panel discussion. So thinking as a user of buildings, you know, you for walking into a building, what surprises you most about restrooms? Kind of a fun question. And I can't remember who we're going to next. Let's start with you, Steve. When you walk into a building, what shocks you, and what can be done about it?
Yeah, you know, it gets back to one of the earlier topics, and it's the, you know, it is just the consistent status of the restrooms. Let's face it, right? That there are odor issues and cleanliness issues which can be created by one or two users, and then add to that, you know, a higher, you know, density of users or occurrence of users around certain times. So quite frankly, sometimes it surprises me to go in and find everything as it should be, because it really is a moving target. But, you know, as mentioned before, you know, the business of scheduling properly and you know, changing your scheduling, by the way, as you go along, because things may change for various reasons, as we discussed, is really important to that. Also inspecting what we expect and making sure that we're getting through that, we're you know, doing the right thing. So that's what I would share.
Good. And Jennifer, back to you.
I probably think the biggest thing that surprises me is, you know, how quickly a bathroom can get destroyed. You could walk by it 30 minutes prior, come around finishing up an inspection, and it's just, you know, tore up. And I think that it's taking some ownership with our staff, with the students in our schools, not just to walk by it. And if if there's a problem, to report it.
Mm-hmm. Good points. And Gene?
I'm surprised and upset when I have to walk out a restroom with my hands dripping because the towel dispenser was empty. So that really kind of bugs me. Or I'm not a real fan, and I know the importance of these sensors, but you have to, some of the sensors don't work, and you know there's soap in there. And so if the batteries have run out or whatever's operating the soap dispenser. So those are the two big kind of things that bug me the most. And I just think making sure your towel dispensers are in good order and having a system for keeping the soap dispensers, the ones with the sensors, charged and ready to go and actually doing their job or set appropriately.
I love the no-touch sensors, but yeah, you're right. Sometimes they don't work, and you're waving your hands and you're moving from one sink to another. That can be frustrating. Good information. Now, Marcelo, I know that you must have something to say here about what surprised you the most. And I would say that when the Dolphins win the Super Bowl, we'll see some dirty bathrooms at your stadium.
Yeah, it depends what kind of fans you have. Winning or losing, you get some damages in the restrooms on the way out. But yeah, it's touching most of that stuff with the dispensers. I've been to restrooms where they'll have a hand dryer right maybe a foot or so from a urinal. The displacement of items are not appropriate, and then not really somebody thought through. And has to do, you send a contractor and nobody follow up. They'll put up whatever it is in a manner that they're supposed to. The ratios, like I said, here we do a lot of studies on the ratios. So you have 3-4 sinks, but 1 paper towel dispenser. So 3 people wash their hands, they're waiting in line to get a paper towel to dry their hands, which then causes another effect of wetting the floor, and then you got it's a safety issue after that as well. Just things in those same lines that everyone else had.
Mm-hmm. Good information. Some bad planning, I guess, in some situations there. So let's move on to our last panel discussion point. Then we'll do our Q&A. So basically, it's just a quick one. What one tip would you share if there was one thing you could share to the group for better restroom cleaning and maintenance? What would that be? And let's start with Gene on this one. One tip.
One tip would be to ensure that your team members know that the restrooms are a priority, and that they understand that stairwells, other areas, they may not get to as frequently, and that is okay. And that as managers, directors, supervisors, that you can communicate that to the stakeholders, that we've placed a priority on restrooms and other public areas, and some spaces just won't be as clean as we would like it to be, but based on staffing shortages. So communicating with your customer base, with your administrators, with your principals, with your school nurses is the best advice that I can give during this time that we're in.
Good. And Marcelo?
Same thing. We encourage you a lot of extra eyes and to be communicated, informative, be in every department or sector to get back to us. But as obvious as it is, one of the most important items in a restroom is to make sure you have paper towels and toilet paper.
I think we all agree with that, don't we? Yes. Good advice. So important. Steve, let's go with you. Same thing.
I would say supervision. I'd have to say supervision, because supervision encompasses how employees are trained, how they're treated, how they're supported with right equipment and tools. Beyond that, how they're coached, and then behind all that, how they're recognized. Right. That's just the better part of coaching is recognition. So I'd say supervision for those reasons.
Okay. And Jennifer, wrap it up for us.
Yeah, tools and resources. Use the tools that you have, and always look for different things as technology's coming out, and don't be afraid to try them.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right. Well, let's do a few minutes of our Q&A. We might go a couple minutes over time, but stick with us if you like. We do have a few minutes left. We have lots of questions about the science of cleaning and cleaning procedures, but let's do this one, thinking about modern trends. The question is, what are you doing to meet the trend and sometimes the mandate to provide free menstrual products in restrooms? And Gene, let's start with you on that one.
Okay. In 2017 or 18, we were approached by 2 students, female students, who asked us why were we charging for menstrual products. We had coin-operated menstrual product dispensers in several restrooms around the campus, and we had no good answer for why we were charging it. We were spending well over $600,000 on supplies for restrooms, and only about $1,000 on menstrual products. So we looked at ourselves, why? And I have daughters too, so the emergencies happen. So we just automatically said, we're gonna do it. We worked with the students. We did a pilot program. It was received very successfully. are perceived as a enhancement to the student experience, especially our female students. So we installed, after the pilot was completed, we selected certain restrooms. We couldn't put them in all of the 800 plus women's and all gender restrooms, but we placed them in strategic locations where there was a lot of traffic, where they're convenient to use. And we implemented that, and our expense went up to $20,000, mainly for the inventory, because we had just our leads stocking, collecting coins, doing all the accounting, and then we had all the maintenance on machines that were broken into. And so we provided them in these select number of restrooms, and the students were very responsible in their consumption of these products. So we were able to sustain that program. And we think it's a great added value of inclusiveness. And just something that I was really proud that I was wondering, why didn't we do this earlier? So I was glad that we were able to move, and we implemented some other cost saving measures to kind of absorb the additional expense. But when you look at what we were spending on restroom consumables, it's a small fraction compared to the others. So we were quick to try to get to, I think we're one of the first universities to adapt this free menstrual product program.
Okay, good information. I don't know if this question would apply to everyone here today. Marcelo, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the plan we had set forth about 6 years ago, if anyone approaches throughout this facility, or the guest experience and ushers are aware of it, we keep guest experience booths in every level, multiple ones. They'll have the products there if it's requested, anyone needs it.
Okay. Looking at some other questions that we received, let me find the one here. Give me 1 second. Okay, a question is about cleaning glass shower doors. So it's kind of a technical question, probably more so for facilities with lots of glass. Any thoughts there on how to handle that? Jennifer, do you have something you might share on that?
Probably, I mean, from a home standpoint, maybe, but not from a work standpoint. We don't have as much shower glass in K-12.
Okay. Any of the others, Marcelo or Steve?
Yeah, we use we use a regular process. We use CLR, anything that's based with water deposits and left over on the glass. So we tried various items to just get that first layer off, and then we'll use the regular glass cleaner on them.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. How do you address an issue where the odor's coming out of the floor drainage, and despite the thorough cleaning of the drainage with chemicals? Who would like to handle that? You want to start us off, Marcelo?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the importance of most of this restroom is trying to flush it out, flush out the drain, and then put in your odor eliminator or an enzyme odor eater back through it so it continues to work through it. But usually flushing it, mostly you get a lot of these odors is from stagnant places that haven't been used as frequently or clean. Otherwise, it's being flushed normally. So just flush it and then try to use an odor eliminator or something that can back it up.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about odors, we have a lot of questions about urine odors, a couple of questions about the toilets, one specifically about urinals that are the waterless type. So do any of you deal with those issues as well? Let's go to Gene to start.
We went with waterless urinals in an effort to conserve water. And it just didn't work for us. The system, the waterless urinals that we had, it had a cartridge that needed to be replaced. It was the worst smell in the world when you pull that thing out of the urinal fixture. There were other piping issues. If your pipe system had flat parts before it goes down into the sewer system, there would be an accumulation of acid, uric acid, and so we tried it for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then we retrofitted and and went back to low flush urinals. And our plumbers really appreciated that too. They received less calls for maintenance. So for us, waterless urinals just didn't worked well.
Yeah. We do have a question here that might be perfect for Jennifer about removing graffiti. So you work in schools. Is that an issue? And what do you have to say about that particular challenge?
So we do deal with it a lot, especially the middle schools, the high schools. There's a lot of different brands of graffiti remover. There's graffiti remover wipes. We learned, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, that, you can use, sometimes hand sanitizer will remove permanent marker, especially from the partition is where we're dealing with the graffiti at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Steve, this question might be perfect for you, and we'll get to the others if they like. Speaking about biohazard materials that are dispensed in restrooms, the little boxes that hold those, perhaps syringes, and the training and material aspects of that. What would you share from that viewpoint, that challenge?
Jeff, I get all of the safety incidents that come in across from our footprint, and it saddens me how frequently we get reports of needle sticks. Talk about a terrible, scary moment. So, in places, in our pretty significant office medical footprint, we make sure that people are, get the right shots going into that as preventative. But it's also a big training piece, right? So now here's where the going too quickly can be the enemy of safety, as it often is. And we make sure that folks are trained to be very, very careful in attending to the trash, not pushing the trash down to try to get more in there. And then there's also customer training side. So if we see there's a problem in a particular restroom, we report it back to the right people to make sure that it gets back to folks, because nobody's trying to hurt anyone. They're just trying to do something convenient.
Good. All right. So another question just came in that's kind of interesting because I never thought about this. How do you clean hand dryers? They're on the wall and you push the button or you wave your hand and they blow air. What about the maintenance of those? Do any of you have any experience with that? Okay, we have two. Let's go to Marcelo and then Gene.
Depends on the type you have. So, not more modern ones, you have better filtration system through them, HEPAs and whatnot. You should just wipe them and disinfect them like you normally do. Where the hands goes, you got to constantly be cleaning that part from buildup because of water residual. Some of them has a drip hand, some don't. They'll have a flush system, and it's got to be something that's got to be on a routine maintenance, definitely. And then also know your time frame for the filter change, and that will increase. Most of the air intake out of those things are usually on the old ones are from the bottom. Some of the new ones are from the side. So you got to constantly keep wiping that bottom side. Otherwise, it gets oxidized as well.
Okay. And Gene, did you have more to add to that?
No, Marcelo, he covered it. He covered all the essentials for maintaining hand dryers.
Okay. Well, good stuff. Let's do one more question. We'll wrap up with this one. This will be the final one. It's kind of a what if, or how do you handle this in thinking about what's happening today with restrooms. Some are requiring or asking for transgender restrooms, individuals that would ask for that. What do you say about that? Or what are you doing about that? Is that something that you're seeing in your facilities as far as a need? Jennifer is nodding her head. Let's start with her.
So in some of the school districts that we have, the maintenance and the district have put different signage on the door, have really changed it to staff. So it's out, so that they can get in there, use those restrooms. And then when we educate our staff, we talk about, we're going to clean a restroom just like we clean any other restroom. And if they have any questions, to let us know. I think through education, I think Steve was talking earlier, that's the biggest key. And really with us is working with our principals and our district when changes come up.
Okay. And then Gene.
At the University of Washington, we converted almost all of the single stall or single use restrooms to all gender. And put locks on them and provided signage and make sure it was posted so everyone knew where the locations of these all gender restrooms. So that was our easy kind of solution to providing accessible restrooms for you know, all the people that are coming to the campus. So anyone could use those. And then in our planning for new construction, all the restrooms in the public spaces are all gender. The sink area is kind of open, and then there's the toilets and the urinals. There's a door that closes, there's privacy. So people can go into any of those, and it's only in one or two buildings on the campus, but I see this as a trend in the design of restrooms. So people can go into a toilet, close the door, they're totally private, with just a little space but on the bottom of the floor. Would be very difficult to you know, violate somebody's privacy. And that's what I see as a trend for new or renovated restrooms. And so we're at the university, they are trying to address that with a large student population. We want to be inclusive for everyone who comes on our campus, so they feel comfortable going into a restroom and not have a traumatic experience because they're in had to use a restroom that's not their preferred gender or how they identify.
Absolutely. How about you, Marcelo? Anything to add to that? Or
yeah, we haven't experienced much with it, but we have plenty of single-family restrooms throughout every level, so it makes it a better experience for anyone that wants to utilize those restrooms.
Okay, and Steve?
You know, only this, that it represents another training issue for employees. You know, in the business of restroom cleaning, typically whenever we could, with the gender specific, we've applied women to go into the women's and men to go into the men's, particularly during active times in the building. And the training point for janitors now, custodians now going in, is you're going to be sailing into a restroom where women and men might be using it. And so there's a little bit of training that goes on the front end that's okay.
I think we can all agree that training is a very important topic with today's information, making sure your staff is well aware of what they should do and why, and all the procedures, all the tools they need to get the job done. So we'll move into our last slide and just wrap this up. I do want to thank our panelists for their expert advice. Great information. An hour is not enough time to cover it all, but a lot of good information provided to our attendees today. So for all of you that are still with us, most of you are, thank you for attending. We will be sending this recording out by email soon, so that'll be coming to you. It'll also be posted on our website. You can see the address there, but go to cmmonline.com, resources and videos, and you'll see a link to watch it there. So again, thank you all for being here today, and that will be the conclusion of our webinar.